Hey guys, Steve Washington here again, and I just wanted to share with you guys today a book that I read years ago, and I'm rereading it again, actually rereading it with my family, that I wanted to suggest to you guys, and then also I'll share a few pieces of wisdom or nuggets that I got from it. Name of the book here is called The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley, and then also this William Danko. And it's an amazing book. The book basically, the guy did a survey, I believe it was about 5,000 millionaires, right? And he came up with some very insightful information about these millionaires that they're not quite who you think that they are. And so he had about five or six that I wanted to share with you guys today. So, first one is he said that most millionaires don't look like millionaires, right? He said wealth is not the same as income. If you make a good income each year and spend it all, you're not getting wealthier. You're just living high. And so one of the stats that he came up with, he said, is that after studying 1,000 millionaires, he found that more than half never paid more than $400 for a suit. And then he found that half never paid more than $140 for a pair of shoes, and half never paid over $235 for a watch. And, I want you guys to think about that, right? And maybe I should have set you guys up a little bit better. But it's like, when you think about a millionaire, like, what do they look like? What do they sound like? What do they dress like? What type of, events do they attend? How do they sound? What is their accent like? Sometimes we have this image, and his whole intention of this book was to really disprove the image that you think that the average millionaire is. They're not. The average millionaire is not this celebrity status and look like a celeb and sound like a celeb and a movie star and all these things. They're just absolutely not. The goal is actually financial freedom. So let me share a few others. Um, Another one he said is most millionaires are self-made. You know, Look, I come from a very, very poor background, right? Inner city, Philadelphia. Grew up in West Philadelphia, born and raised. All the 80s people are singing it. And also, I lived in another section of Philadelphia as well. And, you know, very impoverished, all the things. And, there are sometimes these, how would I put it? They're like these mindsets that people have and these beliefs and myths. That's what I'm looking for, that just aren't true. And one of them is that, oh, this person is rich or wealthy because they probably inherited, their money. And he did the research, he did the studies, and he found that 80% of the people, that just was not the case. It's just not the reality. And actually, the reality looks worse. Like, you don't want the reality, because the reality is that a tremendous amount of people who inherit the wealth, who actually don't have to work for it, oftentimes end up squandering it. Not all of them. Hopefully, you're teaching your kids and the next generation what they need to do, but it's very common. Next one. Millionaires live below their means, and I'm quoting him here. He says, "Being frugal is the cornerstone of wealth building," and that's just it. And take that in its proper context. So he's not saying, like, eating out the trash can or something crazy, but what the point that he's trying to drive here is that these people became millionaires by not just following some traditional path that everybody thinks that they need to follow. Who says that you have to, eat out all the time? Who says that you have to buy the newest and fanciest car? And I picked on, like, cell phones. Cell phones are expensive. Like, these iPhones. Don't quote me. I feel like they're like $1,200 and $1,500 and things like that. Like, it's a lot of money to invest in a phone, especially considering, you can buy like a little. And I hope YouTube's not killing me on this, but you can buy like an Android or some other type of phone for less than half of that. And so what could you do with that money in the middle? And so that's what he's trying to explain in his book, is that millionaires are in fact frugal so that they can create this gap. The whole purpose is to create a gap of disposable money that you can then use to invest. That's how these guys get ahead every single time, all of them. They're taking the difference. They're not spending all of their available money, and they're taking a difference and investing that in some way, some form. It doesn't have to be the stock market or something like that. It could be what I do is I invest in real estate. It could be in a form of your own business. It can be in a form of your education, investing in your education and learn a skill. One of the other videos that we have that I have, we talked about, if you want to increase your income, you have to increase your value. Well, how do you increase your value? You increase your value by becoming more valuable, by having greater information, education, understanding. And I'm not talking about just traditional. I'm talking about, look, listen, if you know how to fix iPhones, which you can learn on YouTube, if you know how to fix the screens or whatever, like there's tons of opportunity, uh, you know, if we kind of apply ourselves and think a little bit outside the box. Just a few more here and I'll be done. Most millionaires drive used cars, not luxury vehicles. Again, I want you guys to really think about this. Like, we all have said it. We may be in a restaurant or something like that, and we see some guy walking in, and maybe you guys know who that guy is or whatever. You know, oh yeah, that guy, he's a millionaire. And it's like that's the image that we have, and it's just not true. Buy the book. I don't, I don't. It's not my book or whatever. The book he outlines it. He's done the interviews. He's done the research. That's not what they drive. He said that the most common car driven by millionaires are Toyotas, Hondas, and Fords. Go figure. The Toyota and the Honda, especially, like I totally understand why, and I'm going to leave it at that. Um, Only 23.5% of millionaires actually bought their cars new. So they're buying used cars. And again, we're not talking about necessarily clunkers and junkers, but they're buying used Toyotas and Hondas because they know that they're incredibly reliable. So that they don't have to squander their wealth on a depleting, you can't even call a car an asset. I don't know what you call it, just transportation. Like the minute, we all know this, like the minute you drive off that lot, that thing is diminishing and losing its value. So most millionaires, they're saying, are not investing in that because they know it's a losing battle. So you want to buy a used car, which has already taken a depreciation hit, and then you want to buy a Toyota or a Honda, or they said a Ford, so that it's something reliable you can have in the long run. Most millionaires don't rely on status, he says. It says, too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people that they don't like. I think that's some good food for thought. The whole purpose of this video is I'm just trying to pattern interrupt you a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, to not think millionaire and think, oh, the NBA star, the NFL star, the Kardashians, the this, the that. Like, no, these guys, the purpose of the book is called The Millionaire Next Door. Like, they live near you. They may live on your street. Your grandparent or someone may actually be one of them. And this is how it came about. Now, again, everybody's allowed to have their own thing, right? So if you're like, well, you may have heard this and you're like, man, I really want a brand new car, a Corvette, this or that, or maybe I want, some expensive watch or suit or whatever. No problem. Get it, but get it in the right time and in the right order, right? If you ask most people, like, man, what's the absolute most important things in your life? At the list, it'll be like health, family, relationships. Obviously we need a roof over our head. If you have children, it might be education for them. Experiences, all these things. Like nowhere does like a brand new car for most people. Some people, look, if that's your thing, no problem. But for most people, nowhere is that like at the top of their list. It's on the list. It's just not at the top. However, when we look at our spending habits and we look at the way that we're marketed to as if this thing is like the utmost important. And I'm here to tell you, well, no, he's here to tell you that that's if you have any intention on becoming a part of that millionaire club, then that's just not where it's at. And the whole purpose of becoming wealthy is financial freedom. It's not about like the stunt factor, right? Or like, just the showy factor and all those things. It ought to be about at least having that financial freedom to be able to live life and do life on your terms and not having to make the decisions because of just the dollar. So something to think about. And last one I'll share here is he said, income is not the same as wealth. He said, having a big income is not the same as being wealthy. Many high income earners have little or no net worth. And so what he's referring to here is this. So this is very interesting. What tends to happen is that oftentimes, as somebody's income increases, their expenses increase right along with it. So someone may go from making $40,000 a year. Maybe they go to school or maybe they develop something or whatever, and now they're making 80,000, 100,000, 150,000, and they just continue to coast right with it. And so consequently, there's there's still not a lot of extra money and room left there for savings for investing to be able to set yourself up correctly. And what Thomas is trying to tell us here is that having a high income and being wealthy are not like two sides of the same coin necessarily, and in many cases it's just not the case. Think about it. Even like you want to buy a house, right? And you go to the bank or you go to your mortgage company and you say, okay, give me, I want to get pre-approved. And you say, okay, well, they say, well, what's your income and yada yada, and then they say, well, look, you're approved up to this amount. A lot of people go up to that amount, to that top number, or super close to it. When in reality, they don't have to. Same thing happens with a car. You get pre-approved for a car. Well, what can you afford? What can you buy? They look at your income, and then the assumption is, well, they approved me for this much. I guess I need to go for that much. And you can, but just don't. You can't really be confused years later when you're like, man, how come the financial freedom? How come it doesn't add up? How come I'm still tight and can't make ends meet? So those are just a few things. Again, it's not my book, but I am promoting the book. It's an amazing book. I think you'll find some other insightful things in there. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely in the comments, like blow me up in the comments. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree or you have some pushback, I'm cool with that too. The whole purpose here is to have a discussion and see what we can learn together. All right, have a great day.